Welcome to the Art Cityscape Podcast, the official podcast of Springville City, Utah, where we publish important information and insightful interviews for the benefit of our citizens.
Hi, Patrick Money here with Springville City, and welcome to this episode of the Art Cityscape. Today we're going to be talking with Mike Snelson and Logan Millsap, both from our City Council, and we're going to be discussing the active transportation plan and trail etiquette as we're getting ready to head into our fun bike season here at Springville City.
Hi, I'm Mike Snelson, a member of the City Council, and we're here today to talk about the active transportation plan.
And I'm Logan Millsap. I'm also on the City Council about a year and a half now, and I was part of the Active Transportation Ad Hoc Committee that created the plan.
And we're here today to discuss the active transportation plan, multi-use trails, and trail etiquette.
Yeah, why are we here? Like, who brought this up?
So I had a friend approach me, a member of the community, that said, we need to do something about training people, teaching people how to use the trails. What is trail etiquette? How we accomplish the etiquette procedures on multi-use trails. And so I approached the city and asked if we could do a podcast on our active transportation plan and trail etiquette.
All right, so I ride my bike quite a lot, though I'm a different cyclist than you. I ride around for, just running errands, getting groceries, picking up family members from work or school.
Yeah, and I'm a different type of cyclist. I cycle for recreation and exercise. I'm what they call a mammal, middle-aged men in Lycra. And so we like to get out. We like to ride. We do use the multi-use trails, but we also use active transportation infrastructure like bike lanes and so forth. We ride in traffic. So
we've got a cool new plan, relatively new, the active transportation plan. Can you tell us kind of how that came about?
Yes, there was a resident by the name of Jeff Hardy that approached me, knowing that I'm an avid cyclist. He was a cyclist and mentioned that he felt like we needed an active transportation plan here in the city. After we chatted for a few minutes, I looked up active transportation plans in other parts of the country and other parts of the world. In fact, Copenhagen is a great example of that. I approached then Mayor Rick Child and asked if we could start working on an active transportation plan.
And I remember you reached out to me. I was just an engaged resident at the time. And Mayor Rick Child reached out to me, and as did you, as they were kind of forming this committee. And as I understood it, at the time, it was intended to be a wide spectrum of different people in the community who walk or bike. We had people from the public health angle. We had people from safe routes to school, mammals like yourself. And we created this active transportation ad hoc committee to help guide the plan process.
Yeah, and the committee acted very, very well. It took, I don't remember how long, maybe a couple of years in cooperation with a consultant that the city hired that we worked with to develop this plan, and it was a huge plan. We had a lot of components to it. Do you remember some of the components that were discussed and what we wanted to do there?
Well, I remember we reached out to as many people in the community as possible to get public feedback. And what we heard a lot is that people felt unsafe riding just around town, and that they wanted more recreational places like those in other cities, like the Provo River Trail or the Spanish Fork River Trail, which we don't really have a lot of here in Springville yet. And so this planning process, some of the components are making particular core routes throughout the city a little bit safer for people riding, adding traffic calming elements that keeps their speed limit a little bit more in check with the actual posted limit, right?
So as a recreational cyclist that uses it for exercise and so forth, personally, I'm not really too concerned about bike lanes per se and safety that way. I ride in traffic all the time. As a cyclist that uses our road networks to do everyday tasks, that's your main transportation. Tell me a little bit about how you feel about the bike lanes personally and how that affects your commute, your trips to the grocery store, things like that.
We have a few roads in town that have bike lanes, and they really help me feel like I'm actually allowed to exist on the road, and they give drivers kind of a signal that says, hey, people on bicycles will be here, kind of watch out for them, we can take care of each other, and know where, especially younger riders sometimes don't know where to ride on a road. I'm older, I'm more confident, I can position myself in the lane if I need to, but moms with kids or kids on their way to school, they need to kind of know where the line exactly is for them to ride.
And the active transportation plan that was developed with this consultant and with the committee addresses a lot of those things. At one point, though, after we finished the plan, presented it to the city council, the mayor and some of city staff were overwhelmed by how big it was, and we determined as a council that had to be kind of shaved down, cut back, and extended over a long period of time. This isn't something that we can, as a city, that we can, in the budget process, just build all at once. This is multi-thousands, maybe millions of dollars to incorporate this active transportation plan. So
Right.
that has to be done over time.
Yeah, and I kind of think of the active transportation plan as a generational, multi-generational project where we're going to slowly, as we improve each new road, maybe we need to do road construction anyway, we can restripe, we can add improvements that over time we achieve this kind of big pie-in-the-sky vision of a safe community where everyone can ride to any destination they need to get to.
Very good. Not really part of the active transportation plan, but part of our Parks and Rec department that kind of correlates with the active transportation plan and multi-use trails is our new bike park. The bike park was introduced maybe 5 or 6 years ago. The Parks and Rec director at the time came to me and asked how I felt about a bike park. And so, of course, I was full speed ahead on the bike park, and now we have a bike park. It's a beautiful park. It's a high-class facility that's important for cyclists, kids. If you go up to the bike park, you always see kids up there riding, and it's a good training place for a lot of smaller kids to learn how to bike. It's a great place for acrobatic cyclists because there are jumps and berms and all kinds of things, plus the component of the mountain trails up above in Spring Creek Canyon. Have you had an opportunity to ride any of that?
They're super fun, yeah. I like that the whole bike park, the idea is that you're graduating your skills higher and higher until you're doing some of those really cool jumps and the double slalom track downhill in the canyon. And I think that those same skills then apply when you're on the streets. Not that you're doing jumps, but knowing how to handle your bike safely is really important on the streets and on our multi-use trails.
And there have been a lot of questions about the kinds of bikes that we can use on the bike park. Now, of course, any pedal bike we can do. The big question comes in with e-bikes, and there are classes of e-bikes. There's a class 1, a class 2, a class 3, and even a class 4 that really isn't a bicycle. It's more of an electric motorcycle.
Yeah.
So
those really tear up some of the trails that we've built and are not allowed in the bike park or on some of our multi-use trails. They really belong on the street.
On the street, yeah. I mean, they can go on mountain roads, things like that, but designated bike trails, those electric motorcycles are not allowed. Mm-hmm. However, any kind of pedal assist bike can go in the bike park and on the trails. So we want to make that clear so that we're not telling people they can't ride their e-bikes in the bike park.
Right, yeah.
Okay, very good. So let's talk a little bit about the local trails that we have. What trails around the county have you used?
I really like the Provo River Trail running alongside so you get to see the fish and the June sucker, and I really love that one.
Okay.
The Spanish Fork River Trail, also equally beautiful. These are more kind of recreational things like, I'm sure you've ridden the Murdoch Canal Trail.
I have. It's a super wide trail and very convenient to ride.
Yeah, I love how wide it is. It feels like a freeway for bicycles.
Personally, I don't like the Provo Canyon Trail unless I'm there very early in the morning when nobody's there, because I do ride fast. People tend to take up the whole width of the trail, and we'll get into that when we talk about etiquette. But the Mapleton Lateral trail,
similar on that. It gets really crowded. These trails are super popular.
Yeah, but cyclists like me need to pick and choose their times when they're not crowded, because it's inconvenient to navigate around walkers and skateboarders and things like that have a right to the trail.
But when you're cruising as fast as you do, I can't keep up. But yeah, it gets sketchy sometimes if it's crowded.
So we've got to be very careful about that, and would recommend that to anybody. Some of the other trails around are the Lakeview Parkway Trail that you can pick up over in Provo, just off the freeway, that takes the Lakeview Road out to the airport and beyond, and that's a fun trail to
I do like that
use
one a lot.
as well.
There's here in town we have a few little segments of trails. There's the trail up the canyon, of course. There's a little segment of Hobble Creek Trail out in kind of the Devon Glen neighborhood area. There's pieces of Dry Creek Trail that we're currently improving down in the southwest area of Utah, or of Springville. And hopefully we can bring more and more online. I know that we're looking at the Tintic rail line. UTA owns that right of way, and they won't be running trains on it for a while, so maybe we can do a rails to trails conversion there. Obviously, that's a big project. There are some, we're looking at a Spring Creek Trail that would maybe connect Springville to Provo. There's another railroad corridor that runs from Springville to Spanish Fork that could possibly become a trail. So there's a lot of exciting opportunities and things that we're currently working on.
Well, I was out on the Mapleton Lateral Trail the other day, a couple of times, in fact, in the last week or so. That when you get to the end, there used to be a dead end there. They're now starting to extend that trail around, eventually to connect onto the Spanish Fork River Trail, I believe.
It's about time.
There's some pavement there. The gate's been open, so we can get on that trail and connect. And we've talked about that a lot. Not only as an active transportation committee, but as a city council, about connecting these trails. There are a lot of trails all the way from Ogden down to Santaquin, and Springville is kind of a hole in that whole
We're like
trail
the blank
system.
space on
it's
the
a
map.
Blank space on the map. Everything else connects, and we're trying to get those connections through, like you mentioned. So that's wonderful. Let's talk about.
So can you tell me why, when you ride really fast, why don't you sometimes choose to let me say that again. You ride really fast, and if you want to ride on some of these recreational multi-use trails, you have to go early in the morning to avoid the crowds. So in the middle of the day, when it's a lot busier, you choose to ride on the road then?
I do. Yeah, I'll take bits and pieces of trails to connect and so forth, but most of my time is spent on the road.
And I guess I ask because I used to, drive up and down Hobble Creek Canyon and think, why are these cyclists on the road when they have a perfectly good trail? And now that I know more, mammals like yourself, I understand that it makes a lot more sense safety-wise for you to be on the road where you're moving closer to the speed of traffic.
The safety thing is an interesting component, especially when we're riding on the road. Going up and down Hobble Creek Canyon, I've been yelled at several times for not being on the trail, but that's, as you mentioned, that's the reason I don't. It's safer for the people that are using the trail, and it's safer for the cyclists to be on the road. And that comes from somebody that's been hit by a car while he's been riding on the road. That happened to me. I was hit, I was injured, and out of it for a while. It took from July to October before I could get back on my bike.
I remember it was scary.
Yeah, it was. I had some bodily damage, and luckily I survived and was fine, and I'm back on my bike and still riding on the road. That's just one of the risks that we take as we do that. But we do have to remember safety and so forth.
Can you tell me then, when you're riding on the trail, what rules do you follow? Obviously, you can't go as fast. You can't set your PR on the trail when there's a lot of people on there. But what's your general practice? I hear sometimes people yell, "On your left." What's that?
Left.
Yeah, so let's talk about that in terms of what's called trail etiquette. So when I'm on the trail, I ride on the right side of the trail, right on the right shoulder, because I want to leave as much space for other users as possible. when I come up to somebody that's slower than I'm going, whether it's a bike or a pedestrian, a skateboarder, whatever it might be, I will pass, but before I make that pass, I do tell them I'm passing or passing on the left or whatever it might be. If they happen to be on the left, I'll let them know that I'm passing on the right. Not just to ask them to move out of the way, but to warn them that a cyclist is coming. It's kind of quiet, and so they can't hear us approach. And it's just a nice thing to let them know that I'm there. And
so it can feel pretty brusque or rude when someone says on your left, but really they're actually trying to be courteous and polite, letting you know that they're passing.
Correct. Yep. And we always like to stay right and pass left if possible.
Just like when you're driving on the road.
Driving on the road. Yep.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of deal. Another thing is to yield to oncoming traffic. We want to make sure we do that. Be prepared with riders coming in the opposite direction. Often, when I'm on one of the multi-use trails, there will be some pedestrians, a cyclist coming opposite from me, I'm going this way, and we meet all at the same time. Yeah. So we just need to slow down, be careful, and pay attention to each other and provide the etiquette that's needed there. Warning signals, like I've mentioned, we call out and warn people that we're coming. One interesting piece of etiquette that I use when I'm doing this is it's wheels yield to heels. So bikes yield to walkers, bikes yield to horses. Walkers actually yield to horses. Horses have the right of way no matter what.
Right.
If the multi-use trail is meant for horses, which many of them are, just so the horses don't get spooked and so forth. So we just need to be careful to yield to that.
And that applies on a dirt single-track trail or on a multi-use trail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the same thing on a mountain bike trail or anywhere else.
And generally, when I'm on a trail riding, I don't ride as fast as you, but I like to just go ahead and slow down when I'm passing people. I'll ring the bell on my bike, and I don't shout on your left. I usually just say hello and how are you today. It's just about being neighborly and not thinking that you own the trail. It's a space that we all share.
Right. And it's nice to be neighborly. It's nice to wave at people as you go by and say good morning.
It's my favorite part of riding.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly. You meet people, and it's a lot of fun. One thing that I've noticed, though, is that a lot of times people have pets that they're walking on these multi-use trails, which is fine. They're certainly able to do that, but please keep dogs leashed or in strollers or some sort of convenient location so they're not getting in the other way of trail users and so forth.
Don't let the leash drag across the trail when other people are trying to get past, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and people generally, in my experience, are very courteous about that. They'll hear us coming and move the pet out of the way, and that tends to help as well. Another thing that I've noticed is sometimes there's not a lot of this, but there is trash on the trails. People dump their candy wrappers, their nut shells, things like that on the trails, and we want to make sure, just like when we're camping or out in the mountains, to leave no trace. Pick up after yourself, keep the trail clean, and keep it nice so that we can maintain these trails and keep the trails for our use.
Yeah, I agree. And then when you're not riding on a trail, I feel like visibility is super important, right? Make sure that if it's nighttime, not just nighttime, you want to have a headlight on your bike, you want to have a tail light, you want to make sure that you're positioned in the road in a place where you're actually going to be visible. Don't be moving in and out of parked cars so that you accidentally surprise a driver coming up behind you.
Yeah, that's true. I like to ride with a high-vis safety, whatever it is, yellow or green jersey.
Yeah.
For that very reason, it's important to stay safe. It's important to stay visible, and I always ride with a headlight. It's flashing during the day. It's on steady at night, and a tail light that's always flashing just to stay visible. That's an important safety feature that we want to take a look at.
And I don't usually have high vis on myself because I'm just doing around town runs and I'm wearing regular normal clothes. But it's really headlight and reflective bits on your bicycle or on your helmet can go a really long way to letting drivers know that you're there. And
Right. So is there anything else about the active transportation plan that we need to let people know about? Is there anything we left out that you can think of?
The one thing that I think I'd like to say is that you are allowed to ride on the sidewalks in Springville. There's no law against that. Sometimes people think there is, but you're allowed to ride on the sidewalk. The same etiquette rules apply there, but maybe even more so because that's primarily for people walking, pushing strollers. You want to go really slow if you're passing anybody, be really neighborly. And hopefully as we build out this active transportation plan, there will be even more places where you can ride just like on the sidewalk, separated from traffic, and we can separate the uses, walking, bicycling, driving. That way anyone can have any option that they want to get around Springville comfortably and safely.
Great. So I probably wouldn't like to ride on the sidewalks then.
No, I don't think you'd enjoy it.
Okay, well, let's encourage everybody to stay safe, be courteous, and use our multi-use trails and active transportation infrastructure to their fullest advantage.
I hope they do.
Okay.